So let's complete this quick briefing on Agile with a few terms that are either indicative of Agile or something very like Agile. So any of these terms that I'm going to speak about now are really terms that say we don't like project, we prefer to work in an anti-waterfall way. And if you speak to certain candidates, they will swear by one method and other candidates will swear by other methods. But to be honest, with many of the terms that are about to follow, there are just tiny nuances that are different in terms of the way they work. But many of them take this big premise of faster user involvement, creating a working model, and collaboration. So the first term I'm going to look at, and it's going to be really the most common term that you see in this area, and that is Scrum. So Scrum is a subset of Agile, and it's of course the in thing at the moment, and it has been for quite a while. Actually, wherever I go, people are looking for candidates who can work in Scrum environments. And it's one of the questions you really need to be able to ask your candidates as well. Things like, do you prefer working in project lifecycle or do you prefer working in Scrum environments? They will say something like, yes, I'm all up for Agile or Scrum. I love working in those intense environments. Or they will shy away and say, actually, no, I'm okay with project type environments in which you know that there is a different type of candidate here. One very enthusiastic about being put into a room with strangers who can actually communicate with them and get cracking immediately. So Agile is a very intense hothouse environment which is results driven, so that you are expected to work towards the end deadline. In Agile, that time box or this time period is king. Everything else can vary, but the time box is the thing that is king. So you have no excuses. You can work night and day. You'll be paid as much as you like. However, we need to see an end result for this. So your candidate is either going to have that mindset or not. Some are going to be really all up for this, throw me into this hothouse environment and I'm ready to go. Others are going to be much more 9-to-5er, pace myself, love to work in long-term projects, even though it may take a long time. So you just to make sure you understand that there probably are two types of candidates you're going to come across in your environment. More and more of the modern people, though, of course, will be erring towards being more comfortable in Agile type environments. So if Scrum is a sub-version of Agile, it's just one of the subsets of Agile. Well, do you remember the small increments or iterations that create version after version? And I said, if let's say a Scrum project took 3 months, well, it would have been chopped up into the smaller iterations. Well, each of those small time cycles within there that knocks out a different version of the product is called a sprint. So that's what a sprint is. Sprints are when you create small versions or new versions of the prototype, moving it forward to the next iteration. You go backwards and forwards to the users, and sprints are those smaller units within a Scrum cycle. There is another term that implies anti-waterfall, and that is called TDD, or test-driven development, which effectively is the same thing. We are all about creating a working model and making sure we keep testing it and making sure that we can then push it forward to the end state. So as I said, it sounds very similar to what we've been discussing with Scrum and Agile in general. But TDD has its own nuances, which we won't focus on at this point, just to let you know that it's kind of one of the terms within this umbrella methodology called Agile. There is a similar term you'll come across, and it focuses much more on the behavior side of things, and that's BDD, behavior-driven development. So there are, as I said, a lot of variations on this spectrum of Agile. Now, one method that is disappearing, but I'm just going to mention it. I did mention it earlier. It is still seen on CVs occasionally or job specs, and that is DSDM, which is effectively the old version of Agile, Dynamic Systems Development Methodology. But as I said, what you need to be aware of is Agile and any of its underlying methodologies such as TDD, BDD, Scrum. But one that is really taking off is that one known as DevOps. Now, DevOps is really the in thing at the moment. In fact, what DevOps does is it takes Agile to the next level. So you can think of DevOps as an evolution of the Agile method. This is so important that I've just completed a masterclass for you on DevOps. So there is an entire DevOps masterclass, which I strongly recommend you go through.